Okay, so let's have a look at Cambridge IGCSE Paper 2 Section B questions 2016, and we're on question 3 about Canada. The economy in 2014 doing well, money was largely retaining its value and unemployment was falling. However, there was a rise in household debt and government deficit, trade deficit on the current account of balance of payments. So make sure you know what deficit we're talking about, trade deficit. The government was seeking to increase exports whilst recognising that such an increase may have an impact on exchange rates. So quite a diverse question here. Quick look at the questions. We've got money, household borrowing, international trade and exchange rates. So that'll give you a flavour of what they're looking for. Two functions of money. Do you know those? Medium of exchange, store of value, unit of account, standard of deferred payment. Bullet point, not much writing needed for that. Most candidates were able to correctly identify two functions of money, although some were confused with characteristics of money. So do not say durable and portable. Okay, question B. Two reasons why household borrowing may increase. Now, household borrowing, something many students may struggle with. I would make two points well explained. The rate of interest may fall, making it cheaper to borrow. Incomes may fall, so people may borrow to purchase necessities. People become more optimistic about the future, having confidence. You may take out more borrowing. The price of housing may fall, encouraging people to take out mortgages. Increase in family size, maybe they need to borrow more. So choose two of those and explain. That'll get you 4 marks. What the examiners say. Candidates were required to explain why household borrowing may increase, which meant explaining how a factor had changed. Stating that if interest rates fell, this would mean it was cheaper to borrow and therefore household borrowing would increase, would be a good explanation. However, in quite a few cases, simply mentioning inflation or low income did not explain why household borrowing would change. Other factors were confidence, increase in family size, pretty straightforward, simple option. So make sure you're making the link quite clear and explicit for the examiner. Right, cracking on, question C. Analyse 3 ways in which international trade differs from internal trade. Right, what does internal trade mean? Trade within a country. So 3 ways, 3 points, 2 sentences each, 6 marks. International trade usually covers great distances, taking longer time to deliver. International trade means a bigger market than the internal market. Think of Europe being much bigger than a domestic market. It's more competitive, enabling firms to gain economies of scale. Internal trade involves using the same currency. International trade involves different currencies. That's a good point to make. International trade means a wider range of goods and services. Trade restrictions may be imposed in international trade, not in internal trade. Tastes and cultures may differ, regulations differ, languages differ. So lots of differences there between internal and domestic trade and international trade, global trade. Now, did people struggle with this? Let's have a look. Answers to this question were often descriptive rather than analytical. Many answers just described how international trade was different. Good answers would have analysed how international trade was different from internal trade. Example, the impact of using different currencies, trade regulations, languages. Okay, so you should be clear in your mind before you even answer that. What is the difference between trading between Birmingham and Manchester and trading between Birmingham and Brussels? Okay, so question D, moving on. Get the question paper. Discuss whether an increase in exports will increase the exchange rate. Key word here is actually will, because you want to discuss, which is evaluate. So an increase in exports will increase the exchange rate because demand for the currency will increase. But however, you'll have to come up with some points that it will not increase the exchange rate. So look at the mark scheme. Question D. The exchange rate is the price of a currency in terms of another, so you get a mark for definition. You want to come up with 1 or 2 points that it will, and 1 or 2 points that it will not. 4 on each side would make it a nice 8 out of 8. So what the examiner, what's he looking for? An increase in exports may increase export revenue. This will increase the demand for the currency. Higher demand pushes up the price of a currency. Even a demand and supply diagram here of the currency would be great. More demand for the currency pushes up the price of the currency. Raising the value of a floating exchange rate. Oh, they've mentioned floating, so you want to mention what exchange rate you're actually talking about. This is determined by demand supply of the currency. I would advocate a diagram there, would be really clear and concise. However, exports may increase, but export revenue may not. More exports may be bought for a lower price, so the demand for the currency will not rise. An increase in exports may be offset by an increase in imports, lowering interest or government intervention by selling domestic currency. So demand supply of the currency will increase, which may leave the exchange rate unchanged. So here we're talking about, well, actually what's happened to imports. So I would imagine some students have struggled with this question. What the examiners say. Many candidates were unable to develop a full response in this question, since it was clear that a significant proportion of them did not understand what was meant by exchange rate. So you shouldn't even be answering this question if you didn't know what exchange rate was, because there's 8 marks missing for that. Often comments referred to physical exchange of goods, more exports rather than the value of a currency. So you had to really focus on what was happening in the demand supply of the currency. A few didn't understand that an exchange rate was the price of a currency in terms of another, and how increased exports would result in an increase in demand for the currency. That was the real crux of that answer, resulting in a higher price. That's where your demand supply diagram would have really helped. Good answers considered the impact of other factors, whether it was an exchange rate of floating nature or of fixed nature. So hopefully that was helpful. Make sure you are clear on, do you really want to answer this question if you don't know what exchange rate was, because you're going to miss nearly half the marks. Okay, thank you very much.